the UN Day of Vesak 2024. To begin our program, it is my honor to invite Her Excellency, Ms. Hasanti Urugodavati Disanayaka, Ambassador of Sri Lanka, to deliver the welcome speech on the significance of this day and its importance to Sri Lanka.
Director of Vesak Institute of Sri Lanka, H.E. Dr. Babatunde Ahonsi, UN Resident Coordinator to the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Tom Deluru, Head of the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, Monsignor Arnoldo Sharon Gabermo, Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of the Holy See to Turkey, Mr. Irfan Kochit, expert from the Cabinet of the President of the Directorate for Religious Affairs, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Ayubowan, Vanakkam, good evening, hosteliers. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you who have joined us today for the commemoration of the United Nations Day of Vesak. Your participation and presence at the Day of Vesak is much appreciated. Vesak, the day of the full moon in the month of May, is the most sacred day to millions of Buddhists around the world. It was on the day of Vesak, about 2,500 years ago, in the year 6th century BC, that Prince Siddhartha, who later became Buddha, was born and became enlightened and attained Mahaparinibbana. In Sri Lanka, Vesak is the name used for the 5th month in the lunar calendar, which corresponds with the month of May in the Gregorian calendar. On this occasion, we celebrate the invaluable contributions of Buddhist communities world over. We join these communities in recommitting ourselves to uphold the universal principles of compassion, peace, and respect for human dignity. Indeed, today I am really pleased to witness that being in Turkey, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the UN Day of Vesak, with the participation of representatives and followers of different faiths and philosophies, which is the true meaning of tolerance and acceptance of peace and harmony among multi-ethnic and multi-religious societies. Sri Lanka tabled a proposal at the UN General Assembly requesting for the adoption of Day of Vesak on 23rd September 1999, and at the 79th plenary meeting of the UN on 15 December 1999, the resolution 54/115 was discussed as the agenda item 174, which was sponsored by 34 countries, acknowledging the contribution that Buddhism, one of the oldest religions in the world, contributing to the spirituality of humanity for over 2.5 millennia, and is commemorated annually at the UN headquarters and UN offices. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Babatunde Ahonsi, UN Resident Coordinator in Turkey, for partnering with the Embassy of Sri Lanka to host this event. I am also pleased to welcome Venerable Dr. Galkande Dhammanandathera, Director of Vesak Institute of Sri Lanka, who has joined us today to provide you with more deep insights into stimulating and thought processes on how Buddhist philosophy can contribute to achieving global peace and harmony. He was also the head of Department of History of the University of Kalaniya, Sri Lanka until recently. The Vesak Institute, headed by Venerable Thero, offers education and training programs for religious leaders and lay persons with an aim to support social healing. I also welcome Mr. Tom Delru, head of the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, who also had worked in Sri Lanka and will be sharing some of his experience working with the multi-ethnic and multi-religious communities in Sri Lanka. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now let me quickly run through a few slides to provide you some basic insights into the world of Buddhism. What is Buddhism? Before that, let me explain the first slide On the top right corner, you see the Buddhist flag. The colors represent different concepts in Buddhism and designed and used in Sri Lanka in 1885 to celebrate Vesak while Sri Lanka was still under British colonial rule. Then in 1950, at an international Buddhist fellowship event, this flag was adopted as the Buddhist flag by all Buddhist countries. What is Buddhism? This is a passage from the book titled Buddhism in a Nutshell by renowned Buddhist scholar monk Venerable Narada. Vajrayana, 3 schools of Buddhism, and you can see in the slide pictures of which countries have which type of Buddhism. Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana. Vajrayana is only practiced in Tibet, Mongolia and Bhutan. If we talk about the essence of Buddhism, let me highlight on few
Sri Lanka to the Republic of Turkey, Excellencies, representatives of the government, dear guests, friends and colleagues. It is really a great pleasure to host the Vesak Day commemoration in the premises of the United Nations and to welcome all of you here this evening. Last October, the Secretary General had the privilege of traveling to the Buddha's birthplace of Lumbini in Nepal. The deeply inspiring visit reaffirmed his conviction that the Buddha's timeless teachings of peace, compassion, and service to others, are the pathway to a better, more understanding, and harmonious world for all. These teachings, encapsulated in several UN treaties and declarations, to which member states committed to adhere. Dear friends, excellencies, unfortunately, as we speak, religious, cultural, and political differences, as well as economic interests, are still too often a root cause for tensions between communities and often a driver of tensions and even conflicts between countries. Even though the respective religions all abide by these values, and these values are grounded in several UN declarations. Hence the need for all of us to relentlessly advocate and keep spreading the teachings of peace, of compassion, and of service to others. Perhaps even more than ever, regardless of the philosophy or religion we follow, and regardless of our political convictions.
This allowed time for you that commemorates the birth, enlightenment, and passing of the Buddha, provides us with a fitting occasion to offer you our warmest greetings and reflect with you about our shared responsibility as Christians and Buddhists to promote peace, reconciliation, and resilience. Never again war. It is peace, peace, which has to guide the destiny of the nations of all six. In his address to the United Nations on 4th October 1965, has been repeated by numerous interreligious gatherings in recent years to order to condemn the destruction caused by wars around the world. We have addressed this issue on several occasions, but the continuing escalation of conflicts worldwide calls for renewed attention to the critical issue of peace and deeper reflection on our own role in overcoming the obstacles standing in the way of its growth.
It is an honor to share my experiences and thoughts with you today on the occasion of UN Day of Vesak celebration here in Ankara, organized by the Embassy of Sri Lanka together with the UN office in Turkey. The theme of my remarks is ways and means to increase global peace and harmony. It focuses on our shared pursuit of a more peaceful world and how the wisdom found in the world's religions can serve as a powerful guide. Allow me to elaborate on this with several key points. Religions have emerged and developed in diverse geographical regions and at different times throughout history. Each religion includes teachings that are specific to its context, shaped by the environment, cultures, and circumstances in which it originated.
And this year we had some long, in-depth conversations with Her Excellency and her team. And following these discussions, she asked if I would like to share some of the experiences I had in Sri Lanka, where I had to work during the conflict in 1999-2000, when I was working for the International Committee of the Red Cross on the front line, and more particularly in Mannar Island, which is the peninsula, where there was a lot of traffic from the Tamil Tigers to the mainland and so on, and also maybe some experience of the work I did in Northern Ireland and in Kosovo, where I worked in former life for Pax Christi International, where we worked with Catholics and Protestants, and then in Kosovo with people from different ethnic groups and religions. Now let me start about Sri Lanka. I mean, I was there, as I said, during the conflict, and one can say, what kind of examples do you see of peace and compassion during a conflict? Well, there were several ones, and although there were civilian casualties, in every conflict you have civilian casualties. An armed conflict without civilian casualties does not exist. And we see that, unfortunately, as we speak. But what we learned from the war in Sri Lanka is that if the fighting parties respect humanitarian law, the number of civilian casualties can be enormously reduced because of respect for the other. And what we often observed with the ICRC, every time when we wanted to go on a field trip, we informed the Tamil Tigers or the Sri Lankan army and say, look, we are planning to go there and there. And then we got this kind of coded messages like, it's going to be bad weather next week, or maybe that area is not good to go there. And through our contacts, what did we figure out is that pretty much every time, before either the army or the Tamil Tigers conducted a military operation, which included shooting and bombing, that those areas were empty already 1 or 2 days before the operation started. They would never disclose what they wanted to do, but it was clear that they informed, both sides, informed the population in those areas where they were planning operations to leave that zone for a while. And then we could see, once the operations were over, people were coming back. By doing so, they saved